Yes, It Matters. Written by R.H. Jr. Fluttershy, that's a really foolish question, Twilight said irritably. Of course it would matter. It would matter a great deal. Fluttershy blinked. That was awfully blunt, she said finally. You mean, if I told you I was a changeling right now? She paused. Our friendship would just mean nothing? The two of them were standing in the middle of the remains of the wedding reception, surrounded by empty tables, scattered napkins, and paper plates. Despite the invasion, despite horrors that they had just been through, Cadence in shining armor had insisted on going through with the wedding celebration. For at least a few hours, the ponies of Canterlot had forgotten the fear and peril they had just escaped and had let their spirits be lifted by the celebration. Then again, on reflection, perhaps that had been why Cadence in shining armor had insisted. Wise and savvy on their part. They were going to make good rulers someday. But the bride and groom were long gone, and the morning after party hangover was on its way in a few short hours, along with ponies waking up to the grim realization that Equestria had a new, terrible enemy which it would have to face again some dark day. Plans would be made, martial forces would be rallied and bolstered, defenses and strategies would be plotted out. And, wearisome as it was, some all too predictable forms of foolishness would make their perennial appearance. Twilight scowled. She was not up to dealing with this now. She had just probably had the most stressed out couple of days of her life. She'd spotted a terrible danger to Equestria, tried to warn every pony, been brushed off by her best friends and even her own mentor, and then been forced to watch as her entire world had nearly been destroyed right in front of her. And she was yet to get anything resembling an apology from any of them. All that thrown in the middle of planning a royal wedding, like the world's most nightmarish tossed salad. And now, her overly sentimental friend was trying to guilt her for being angry at the species that did it all. It was frustrating her to no end. Would it matter if I were a changeling? Indeed. Well, are you? Fluttershy said nothing. Oh, great. That game as well. This wasn't the first time she'd been confronted with such verbal sophistry. She'd been a student on college campus, where such twittery seemed to flourish the most. Equestria was a fairly peaceful nation, but every now and then it would be faced by some clear and present danger to itself. Some mad cult or political conspiracy, or even networks of spies, saboteurs, mad bomb-flinging anarchists. And without fail, there would be some half-wit, self-appointed defender of the little pony who would get up on his soapbox and blurt something along these lines and think it was a challenging ethical argument. What if I were one of them? What if your loved ones were members? What would you do? Would you really cooperate with the tyrant princesses in oppressing our civil whatevers and wherefores, etc. ad nauseum? Or, more fun and games, there were those who, even as the guards were trying to track down the saboteurs, spies, anarchists, street vandals, would try to whip up sympathy for ponies who had just set fire to the local courthouse or blown up a bank. And when ponies demanded to know if they were part of the group, as they were deliberately hinting, they would pull this rhetorical nonsense, refusing to answer one way or the other, as if that would keep the ponies from drawing the obvious conclusion. Just reading about their shenanigans made Twilight want to thump them. It was contrived, situation doublethink, ponies trying to get you to chuck common sense out the window for the sake of some semantic rhetoric. But now, from Fluttershy? This took the cake. Fluttershy, she said, dredging up the last of her patience. We just got attacked by an army made up of a species we've never even heard of before. Creatures that can literally steal a pony's identity. They kidnapped me and my sister-in-law, brainwashed my brother, nearly killed Celestia, and hunted down ponies like wild animals while their queen sat there in the throne room cackling like a madmare. This isn't some vague hypothetical threat, it's a real and present danger. We kind of have a right to take measures to protect ourselves. Of course it would matter if you said you were one of them. In what possible reality could it not matter? Fluttershy rallied. But they were just following orders. Exactly, Twilight said. Her voice got chilly. They were given orders, and they followed them. They made a choice. You don't get out of accountability just because someone told you to do something stupid and evil, Fluttershy. My brother once told me that all our soldiers are told that they have a duty to refuse to follow orders that they know are illegal or immoral or wrong for just that reason. If a soldier follows an unlawful order, they're still accountable. And as far as I saw, those changeling soldiers were perfectly happy chasing down terrified ponies through the city streets as ordered. So you'll have to pardon me if I don't feel too particularly sorry for them. What if there were other changelings out there? Ones who didn't follow Chrysalis? Well, they'd better come out as soon as possible, Twilight said dryly. They didn't exactly make any friends by hiding when we were in danger from Chrysalis's army. The princesses are going to be turning over every rock, digging for information on the changeling race, looking for more of them hiding among us. They'd be fools and criminally negligent not to do so. So any changeling out there is probably going to be found anyway. No pony's going to be too happy to have changelings come out of hiding, but they're going to be a lot less happy if we have to catch them. A lot of ponies are going to be examined and interrogated. Probably nearly every pony eventually. But that's awful, Fluttershy protested. Don't ponies have a right to remain silent? Twilight shook her head. No, not in this case, she said. Ponies forget. You have a right to remain silent so as not to incriminate yourself. But the law still has the authority to demand you identify yourself. That would include your species. So they'd be perfectly within the law to do whatever it takes to determine if you were who and what you said you were. But what? But we don't know they're all like that. You can't judge a whole species by the behavior of the first big group of them we find, Fluttershy protested. That's just wrong. Twilight stared at her in disbelief and exasperation. Yes, we can. We absolutely can. That's exactly how you do it. Especially when that one group is the only one that has shown itself to us before, during, or after. The statistical survey is in, Fluttershy. Thus far, 1,000 out of 1,000 changelings interviewed want to catch us, stuff us in cocoons, and suck our faces off. She grabbed a straw off a nearby drink table, stuck it in her mouth, and lunged at Fluttershy, making trumpeting sucking noises through the straw. Fluttershy backed up in alarm, her eyes never leaving the straw. Twilight pursued her for a few steps, backing her Pegasus friend up till her rump bumped into a table. She finally ran out of breath and spit the straw on the floor. She was chuffing like a train engine, and not just from trying to catch her wind. This isn't a game, Fluttershy, and it isn't an episode of the Ponies' Court. This is our nation being invaded by an enemy, and us having to defend ourselves. We're in a state of war, Fluttershy. The rules are a little bit different. The countryside is going to be searched. Ponies are going to be interrogated. There will be checkpoints and changeling magic detectors and curfews and more. So yes, a lot of ponies are going to have their hooves stepped on before this is all over. Honestly, Fluttershy, what good would it do if we got overrun by changelings, again, because we were too nice and polite to inconvenience any pony even when we're all in obvious danger? Fluttershy looked at her with heartbroken eyes. So, you would really turn me in? If I were... Twilight felt a little sympathy return. Fluttershy, I'd have to. Chrysalis and her army may have been banished, but they're not gone. They're still out there and still a threat. We know nothing about them, about their species, about their culture, about their government, about why they attacked now instead of tomorrow or 2 years ago, or what changed so that they did. She threw her hooves in the air. If you were a changeling, even one of these hypothetical other changelings not working with Chrysalis, and you still insisted you were our friend, and let's just set aside all the questions of how you would prove you were the real Fluttershy and that she wasn't languishing away in a cocoon someplace, it would be the safest thing for you. And frankly, yes, I'd be angry with you. Twilight got her breathing under control. That would mean that you had all this knowledge about the changelings and their species and their blatantly evil leader that we desperately needed, that we could have used to stop her, and you didn't tell us. So yes, Fluttershy, it would matter if you turned out to be a changeling, because I'd say by refusing to tell us until it was too late, well, that would have been a pretty horrible thing to do to us. Twilight turned back to her discarded clipboard, leaving the Pegasus gaping at her in shock. Twilight's magic trembled a bit. This was getting too real too fast. You'd think I was a horrible friend? Just because I was a changeling? Fluttershy's voice was thick with tears. Twilight's ears drooped. Nightmare Moon, Discord, that dragon on the mountain, all the parties and lunches and just simple good times together. She took a deep breath and let it out, feeling her heart ache. No, but it would mean that a friend I cared about deeply had done a pretty horrible thing. It would mean nearly everything we thought we knew about you was wrong. It would mean that nothing would ever be the same again. It would mean we'd have to start all over again, just getting to know you, to understand you. And it would mean we would have to relearn to trust each other all over again, right from scratch. It would take a long time to get over it, I think. So yes, it would matter. And it's cruel and hypocritical to demand that it not matter as if nothing had changed. She sighed. But we're not monsters, Fluttershy. You said, but aren't you my friend? Well, aren't you my friend? Don't you know me? You know what we've all been through together. You know how much we care for you. If you or any other pony we knew turned out to be one of these hypothetical other peaceful changelings, we'd have to remember all they'd been through with us, all the friendships and memories, and that in the end they didn't side with Chrysalis. We're not stupid after all. She squared her shoulders. If you were a changeling, Fluttershy, I'd say now is the time to step forward and tell everyone the truth. I figure it probably runs against every gut feeling you have, but it's always better to confess a lie than to be caught out in one. You know what I'd say to changeling Fluttershy? Her stomach trembled. She found herself having trouble continuing. Fluttershy, if you're really our Fluttershy, I know you're scared. I'd be in your place too. Heck, I'm scared myself anyway. A lot of feelings are going to be hurt. But the first part of friendship is trust. The sooner you let us all know the truth, then the sooner we can all start forgiving each other. You've been my friend for so long, and if you just give me your trust, then I'm not about to throw it away. There was a flash, like a flare from a candle. Twilight turned around and held her breath as the house of cards that had been their lives came tumbling down.